Welcome back to Indomitable with Dom, the podcast for people who refuse to settle for average. Today's topic, which I'm sure that you saw in the title, actually came from a discussion that I was having with the Uber driver that was picking me up from my home and taking me to the airport. He asked me, what is it that I do for a living? And I told him that I was a sales coach. And he said, well, what is it that a sales coach does? And I said, that's a really good question, brother. I said, essentially, to sum it all up, the easiest way for me to tell you is the way I like to look at my job is I teach folks how to communicate. And the best communicators are not the best talkers, they're the best listeners. And we had a pretty good exchange back and forth, and he told me that his son was in sales, and he asked me for some tips and tricks on what he can share with him, and I shared it with him, and I told him, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you can make sure that the customer is your focus and not your bottom line, or not your money, for lack of better words, then you'll be successful in sales because you're putting other folks first. But then he asked me a question about how to stay locked in. And he said, his son has an issue with staying focused in sales. And this is an issue that plagues a lot of people just because sales is a war sport. I always like to say it truly is a battle. And it's one that you have to prep yourself for constantly. But either way it goes, in speaking with him, it made me think. And I got to be real with you. I've lost a lot of deals that I should have closed. Not because I wasn't skilled, but because I wasn't locked in. I let distractions pull me out of that flow. I gave 80% when the moment really called for 100%. And looking back, it wasn't about ability, it was about discipline. And that's a common trap that I see everywhere. Guys tend to perform better when they're out of town, but when they're back home with the same job, the same customers, they slip. And that tells me something. The ability is there. The skill is there. What's missing is the will to stay locked in. So I want us to think about some of the greatest athlete stories in history. How many times have we seen or heard an athlete have the game of their life while going through chaos offside the court? Whether it was a family loss, tough situations, but when the game started, they locked in. That is called flow. Flow is when you're fully present, mind, body, and spirit, all in the same place. No distractions, no second guessing, just locked in. And here's the thing, flow isn't luck. It's not random. There are psychologists like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi studied it and found that it's an actual brain state. Your prefrontal cortex quiets down. You stop overthinking and your performance skyrockets. There are Harvard studies that show people in flow are 40% more productive. That's science. But here's the faith side of it. So Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as for working for the Lord, not for your human masters. Science calls it flow. Scripture calls it working with all your heart. God designed you to live this way. So in my line of work, I've noticed guys perform better when they're out of town versus when they're back at home. And I ask, why is that? And they usually say, well, when I'm out of town, I don't have distractions. I'm not rushing to get back home, and I can give more of myself to the job. And then I'll follow that question up immediately with, so why don't you do that when you're back home? It's the same job, the same customers, so why don't you give that same focus there? And they'll generally respond with, well, when I'm home, my wife is calling me, something's going on, and I'm just distracted. And listen, my wife is the most important person in my life outside of God. But here's the thing. She and I built an understanding. When I'm working, I'm fully locked in. Do not call me unless it's urgent. Respect the flow. And I give her that same respect at home. We homeschool our children. And when she's teaching them and I'm home, I do my best to be invisible because that's her flow. I don't step in and break it. That's what flow looks like. Being fully there, whether it's at home, on the road, anywhere. And here's where it gets a little personal. I know what it feels like to live out of flow. I know what it feels like to be halfway work, halfway at home. To be nodding while my wife is talking but not really listening. To be answering emails while my kids are asking me questions. And the truth is, when you live that way, eventually, the people you love the most will stop believing that you're really there. So let's break this down a little bit more. What is flow? It is the state where you stop splitting your attention and give your whole self to the moment. Why does it matter? Because when you're in flow, you produce more with less wasted energy. Research shows productivity goes up by nearly half. Nearly important, you bring God your best, not your leftovers. So what kills flow? Honestly, it's distraction, comfort, and a weak why. That's the trap. On the road, the stakes feel higher. You flip the switch, but when you get back home, you relax, you tell yourself, I'll get to it. And that's not inability, that's comfort. And I actually just shot a podcast on the dangers of comfort not too long ago. But James 1:4 says, let perseverance finish its work so you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. Flow is perseverance in action. And 2 Timothy 1:7 reminds us, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Flow is what that sound mind looks like when it's put to work. So I want to give you 3 steps to retrain yourself to stay in flow. Number 1, define your standards everywhere. Stop treating your best like it's optional. Write down what all in looks like on the road and at home and hold yourself to it. Number 2, create rituals that trigger focus. Athletes, professionals, we all have pre-game routines that we should be doing. Whether it's prayer, music, deep breath, whatever it is, use it to tell your brain it's go time. And number 3, call out your comfort excuses. Be honest. Are you pulling back because it's wise or because it's comfortable? And if it's because it's comfort, you need to move away, even if it's messy. If you can flip the switch sometimes, you can flip it all the time. Stop living like excellence is situational. Stop giving more when you're away and less when you're at home. God did not design you to perform part-time. He designed you to bring excellence into every space that you walk into. And here's the legacy piece. Your kids don't need a dad who's on sometimes and distracted the rest of the time. Your wife doesn't need half of you while the world gets the best of you. Your team doesn't need a leader who flips the switch only when it feels urgent. They need a man who lives in flow, who shows up fully, everywhere, every time. Because flow isn't luck, it's discipline. It's presence, it's choosing to honor God with all of your heart, wherever you are. And the habits you build in flow today will be the legacy your family carries tomorrow. If this one hit, share it with someone who's been flipping the switch instead of staying locked in. and be on the lookout to your free guide, 7 Steps to Overcome Your Mind, and join a community of learning how to perform in flow, not comfort. Until next time, keep growing, keep fighting, and stay indomitable.